So I am super happy to be here. And I want to make it clear right off the bat that I don't know enough about your congregation here to be directly addressing you. So this isn't a message to you, this is a message to Unitarian Universalists everywhere. That's what I do when I step into neutral pulpits, is I try to keep the message generic. And I didn't want y'all to think that I was talking directly about you. I don't know enough about you to do that. But thank you, Jan, thank you, Julie, for having me. I appreciate all of your partnership over the period of time getting ready to prepare this. And I want to start by briefly talking about the title of the sermon, which is What's Under the Hood. That is a metaphor, and I want to make sure that we all know what that metaphor means, because I'm not sure that we do, so let's just start on a level ground. When we say what's under the hood, it's a term we use talking about cars, generally speaking, because cars have hoods, and the engine is under the hood. So it's a metaphor that we use to say, you got to check under the hood, just don't look at the car, right? What it means to imply is that some things you can't see are at least as important, if not more important, than the things that you can see. So that's where that metaphor came from. And it comes from this angle. Where I'm coming from is I'm coming from this angle. Unitarian Universalism has not grown since 1960, when it first created itself out of two religions. Over that same period of time, many religions have actually shrunk, some of them considerably. And it is true that all boats rise on a rising tide, and all boats sink on a sinking tide. You might say, well, there are some faiths that are growing, and most of the faiths that are growing are connected to immigration. People come here with a religion, and they continue that religion when they get here. That's why you'll see the Roman Catholic Church is growing, Hindu temples, and especially around Houston. We have such a wide array of different religions here. We have the only Zoroastrian flame in the Western Hemisphere. We have an Ismaili center, the only one in the United States. This is a very rich religious area. Now, some churches don't deserve to grow. Some congregations don't deserve to grow. They are unhealthy communities. The beloved community, my friends, as we all know, is not going to build itself. It needs help. But that aside, even the ones that are healthy, I think are not growing, or at least I think one reason that they're not growing is because a lot of times we as Unitarian Universalists are afraid to take the step to go deeper into our faith. Many people leave their former religion because something bad happened to them in that religion, and I'm sure there are people here who have experienced that. And we welcome you, and we are dreadfully sorry for whatever happened to you wherever you were. But a less visible number of us have left their original faith, if they had one, not because something bad happened to them, but because nothing good happened to them. I put myself in that category. Just meh. I wasn't getting anything from my religion. As a result, many people come to Unitarian Universalism not because of what it is, but because of what it isn't. But many people come to Unitarian Universalism looking for something more. For some people, dodging that deeper reflection is okay. That's why they're here. They want to dodge. But for other people, dodging that deeper reflection or the lack of an institutional orientation toward a deeper reflection is boring. What we miss, I think, is that many people who leave Unitarian Universalism leave not because of what it is, but because of what it isn't. Let's take a look, thank you for those core beliefs that we read, the principles and now the values. These are the closest thing we have to core beliefs between us, right? And if we take a look at them, I happen to have them here, we'll just take a look at a couple of them. Acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Kind of hard to push back on, right? The inherent worth and dignity of every person. I've actually heard people push back on that one, but I think it's one of our more misunderstood principles. Or the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Or our values, pluralism, celebrate all sacred beings, transformation, we adapt to the changing world. I'm just picking out a couple here. Equity, we declare that every person is inherently worthy and has the right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. I have never known anyone to come to a UU church for the first time, read our principles, or now our values, look at them and go, yeah, I don't think so. It doesn't happen. Everybody reads them. Now, they may have a problem with one word here or there, but most people read them and say, yes, that sounds like a religion for me. And that's what happens, right? So on the surface, our 7 principles and now our 6 values are very easy to digest. They're very easy to take. They're non-offensive. They're quite comforting in a lot of ways. Wouldn't you love to be part of a community that believed in the inherent worth and dignity of every person? Or at least said they did. But when you take them to another level, they're actually quite complex. And they make for what is a rather difficult religion. Unitarian Universalism is not easy. If you've done it for a while, you begin to realize how not easy it is. For example, wouldn't it be great if we had a way to revoke people's inherent worth and dignity? That would be wonderful, wouldn't it? It would solve a lot of problems. But we don't. We don't profess to have that or to know that. And the more you get into it, the deeper it goes. And we are not alone. Every religion has these levels of understanding of their religion. Most religions have these levels of teaching, right? And the first level is the religion for the masses, what I call the religion for the masses. It's a religion for people who are busy and don't have time to be introspective or don't have the inclination to be introspective about their religion. It's very simple religion. Here are the rules, yes or no, yes, you're in, no, you're out, very simple, right? That's most religions. I was raised Roman Catholic, and what that looks like to Roman Catholics is when you ask a question to the priest or to the teacher and you get the answer, well, it's a mystery of God. In other words, don't go there. It's not worth it for you. Just stay at religion for the masses. Or maybe the teacher you're talking to is stuck at religion for the masses as well and doesn't want to go into it anymore. In Unitarian Universalism, I've found that it looks like focusing on other people's religions We tend to dissect other religions the way an 8th grader dissects a frog. And when you're done, in both cases, all you've got is a former frog or a former religion. Or we base things on facts and science and things like that. Now, those things aren't bad. As a matter of fact, they're part of our profession. But for some people, it's not enough. They need to go into that second level. They yearn to go into that second level, that deeper level that results from an increase in inquiry. Most major religions have this second level too. Buddhism has the 5-fold path for regular people and the 8-fold path for the monastics. Christianity has the religion for the masses and then the religion for the special people, the priests and whatever. Even Unitarian Universalists have that. And there are more levels that go deeper even than that, where the philosophers and the theologians and the writers and the priests all go. We don't have to go that far. You don't have to make a living out of this. Just go a little bit deeper. These are people who have subjected that religion for the masses to further inquiry. So one common example I'll give you is the Gnostics. The Gnostics were a group of followers of Jesus who believed in something called gnosis, which was the Greek word for the word knowledge. And they believed that what happened between Jesus' coming back from the dead and when he ascended into heaven, those 40 days where he was with the apostles, they believed that Jesus gave a special teaching to the apostles, that the apostles then gave to only special people, only people who wanted to go into this deeper level. So you're beginning to understand what I mean by what's under the hood. What's under the hood of Unitarian Universalism? What's under those principles? What's under those values? And I'm going to give you, now we're going to get into looking at what I mean by that, okay? And to understand what I mean by that, I think you have to first understand a very basic concept. And I'll explain the concept to you by saying, I love to people watch. Do you like people watching? I love people watching. As I watch people, I find myself, now there's a polite way to say this and a regular people way to say this. The polite way to say this is, while watching someone, what must you believe for you to have just done what you just did, or say what you just said, or think what you're thinking? That's the polite way. The regular people way is, what the hell were you thinking? Right? But for today, the polite way actually works a little better for the sermon, so I'm going to stick to the polite way. Not just because it's polite, because it actually works better, right? So we'll stick with it. And what I'm talking about doing with getting under the hood here is basically people watching ourselves. When we ask ourselves, and we've all done it, what the hell was I thinking? What must I believe if I just did that? What must I believe if I think that? What must I believe if I just said that? I call it playing Sherlock Holmes on yourself. People watching yourself. We're going to go and we're going to do a little bit of work on this. So here's an example. I'm going to ask you a question right now. Here's an example. How many of you subscribe to the Houston Chronicle? Right, okay. Why? What must you believe to be a subscriber to the Houston Chronicle? Well, you must believe that the writing is good. You must believe that the information is valuable. If all it did was publish the tide charts of New Orleans, that wouldn't be particularly helpful to you. And you must believe that it's truthful, at least to some extent, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't bother to buy it. The same way you choose television channels. So These are what I call active beliefs. This is what's under the hood. It's the belief behind, below, and supporting what you're doing. And really importantly is they're beliefs that you might not even be aware of. In fact, you're probably not aware of them. People don't consciously buy the Houston Chronicle because they believe those things. They just inherently believe those things. They don't ever articulate it. No one ever made a list of the reasons why I should buy the Houston Chronicle. That's why we play Sherlock Holmes on ourselves. That's why I'm inviting you to go a little bit deeper to find these things out. So let's look at these principles and values one more time. What must I believe? What must I believe if I believe in justice, equity, and compassion in human relationships? Well, I must believe that I want to be treated justly, fairly, right? I must believe that it's possible for people to be treated justly and fairly. I must believe that the world will be a better place if we could just do this. So what are the beliefs that are underlying your religious thought? What are the beliefs that are underlying your Unitarian Universalism? We celebrate that we are all sacred beings. Whoa, that's a belief, right? What must I believe if I believe in a religion that tells me that we are all sacred beings? Well, I must believe, one of the hardest things for us to believe, I must believe that I too am sacred because I am part of everybody. You see where I'm going with this? This deeper level of inquiry, I think, is important. I think people walk away sometimes. They don't walk away, they don't stomp away, they don't slam the doors, they leave. They just kind of wander off because we are reluctant to go down this path. So what's under the hood for your Unitarian Universalism? This, my friends, whether you know it or not, is a deeply profound religion. It is built on trust in each other. It is built on trust in the unknown. And it is built on trust of the process. It is very important. And it is very unusual. And I'd like to leave you with this quote. This is a quote from retired Universalist minister and professor at Meadville Lombard Theological School, David Bombaugh. It was first delivered on May 10th in 2008, and I have to tell you, I was in the room, and I heard this speech, and I didn't get it. And it was only later reading it again and again and again, and I've used this quote often and often and often. It is a wonderful quote, for which he was basically banished, but that's another question, that's another thing. So here he goes. He's talking to a bunch of seminarians and religious people. He says, if Unitarian Universalists are to serve our people and the world in which we find ourselves, it is critical that we now take up the unfinished product that Universalism brought to the consolidation in 1961, that we have the courage to define ourselves in ways that offer a clear alternative to both the dangerous and divisive orthodoxies that seem to have been popping up in the religious venue, and the refusal to embrace a clear identity that threatens to sweep liberal religion into commodified, thumb-sucking irrelevance. It is time for liberal religion to declare the faith we hold. The world has a right to expect that of us. Now you know why he was banished. So I would like to add now to Reverend Bomba's list of things that threaten to drive us into thumb-sucking irrelevance, a failure to provide a deeper reflection on this liberating, redemptive, and joyous religion we all share. To quote Reverend Bomba, the world has a right to expect that of us. In 2008, when he said it, the world had a right. In 2026, the world cries out for us to share the best of our faith. May it all be so.